speech. So again, he's saying, hear me, hear me, hear me. Verse 7. This is a strange word here. Okay, he says, show thy marvelous loving kindness. The word marvelous there is the word distinguished or distinctive. Show me your differentiating loving kindness. What does that mean? Show me that I'm different from the rest of the world. Show me that your loving kindness treats me differently because I trust you. This is not the loving kindness that goes to all people, the grace that everyone experiences. This is the covenant loving kindness that I've promised to love you with. So he says, Lord, do what you've promised. Your marvelous or your distinguishing mercy that will show me different from the rest of the world because I trust you. So show me your kindness and mercy that shows that I am different from the rest of the world. And that's what he says in the second half of verse 7. O thou that savest by thy right hand them which put their trust in thee from those that rise up against them. So show your marvelous mercy to those who are different from the rest of the world, those who trust you, because the other parts of the world are rising up against me. These enemies are rising up against me. And he has two requests here. He uses two images for protection, the eye and the wings. In verse 8, keep me as the apple of your eye. The apple of the eye is the pupil of the eye. Okay, if you're close enough to somebody, look in their eyes. Okay, look in their eyes. Go ahead, look in their eyes. It's a little bit weird. Can you see a reflection? Can you see your own reflection in their eyes? The Hebrew is this. The Hebrew is, keep me as the little man of the eye. Keep me as the little daughter of the eye. In other words, a little daughter needs protection, needs love. Keep me. And I think it's a reference from Deuteronomy 32:10, but just think about the eye for a second. The eye is probably the most sensitive and delicate part of your body. Think of how God protected the eye. He's put bones around it, cheekbones, brow bones, and he's put it inset. It's protected. If you pounded your eye with the palm of your hand, it wouldn't hit your eyeball because it's protected by bone. It's protected with an umbrella, an eyebrow. It's protected with an eyelid. It's protected with eyelashes. It's protected with reflex that blinks if there's something coming towards you. So just as the eye is protected, Lord, protect me. Keep me as the apple, the little man of the eye. But he's not done there. He goes, hide me under the shadow of your wings. Two ways the word wings are used. Okay, remember what Jesus said about Jerusalem? You that stone the prophets and kill those who are sent to you. Jerusalem, if you would have come, I would have gathered you under my wings as a mother hen does its chicks. That's one way it's used. But there's another way it's used in the Old Testament. Wings. Do you remember the Ark of the Covenant? What is on the Ark of the Covenant or above the Ark of the Covenant? Anybody remember? Cherubim with wings that are going over it like this, right? Another way I think this imagery can be used is David is saying, look, I'm running, protect me, I'm running, but I want you to be my hiding place. Remember what the Ark of the Covenant stood for. The very presence of God. So wherever I am, God, you're my hiding place, right? Wherever I am, God, I want your presence there and your protection there. And so that's what David is praying. Keep me as the apple of your eye, protect me. Keep me as under the shadow of your wings. Why? Because I know you're present and I know you'll protect, as the cherubim did. And then after he gives those two images of protection and of care, he gives a couple of other images, or one image in two different ways. Okay? He brings up fat hearts. Okay? And this is not talking about, the stuff that we take medication for to thin the blood and arteries, right? He's saying, look, these people, their hearts are enclosed with fat. They have become insensitive. Their hearts are insulated. They have no compassion. They're proud and they're wicked. These are the reasons why you should answer me. Because verse 9, my enemies are deadly. They oppress me. They're surrounding me. They're insensitive. They're incapable of compassion and pity because their heart is surrounded by fat. They speak proudly with their mouth. They threaten. And then he goes on to describe that he's hemmed in, he's surrounded, they've compassed him about. The enemy is like a lion. They're getting ready and crouching and stalking and getting ready to leap and to pounce and to tear me apart. They're like a lion, a young lion stalking in the bush. They're ready to tear me to shreds. God, I trust you. But look at my enemies. They're going to eat me up. So God, judge my cause. Hold me up as I go. Now it's time for you to arise. Because they're stalking. They're getting closer. They're getting closer. And look at what he says in verse 13. The third major point is this. Help me to see your deliverance. He says in verse 13, arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword, from men which are thy hand, O Lord, from men of the world which have their portion in this life, and whose belly thou fillest with thy hid treasure. They are full of children, and leave the rest of their substance to their babes. He prays to the Lord for deliverance, and he says this, it's time for you to rise, and the word disappoint there means to meet the enemy, to confront the enemy. The lion is sneaking up to tear me apart. Lord, arise, stop them in their tracks. And then he goes, cast him down. The word cast down has the idea of making the lion to cower and to yield. You ever see lions at a circus show? There's a man standing with a chair and a whip, and the lions are cowering, right? They're yielding. With a man with a chair and a whip, all the lion has to do is, break the chair like toothpicks. But here he's saying, God, the enemy's coming, meet them, cause them to bend the knee, cast them down. And then lastly in verse 3, 13, deliver my soul with your sword, which is your sword. So I'm not going to lift up my hand against them. I'm not going to lift up my hand against the Lord's anointed. Remember what David said? But God, you lift up your hand against them. You lift up your sword against them. And look at verse 14. From which men are thy hand, O Lord, from men of the world? These men here, lift up your sword against them. They don't care about you. They don't care about eternal things. They're only living for this world, the goods of this world and the goods that they can leave the next generation of their children. Lord, deliver me. And then verse 15, as we wrap it up here, he says essentially, Lord, I have confidence in you, not only now, but for all eternity. Look what he says. He says, as for me, these enemies, these vicious lions, they're living for this world. But as for me, I'm living for eternity, but I know you'll also deliver me in this world. As for me, verse 15, I will behold thy face in righteousness. I will be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness. So he expresses his confidence that he's going to see a glorious future, not only on the earth, the life which now is, but also the life which is to come. This is one of the few passages, verse 15, in the Old Testament that touches on the life of the resurrection. Some people say it doesn't speak about the resurrection at all. But I think the contrast kind of indicates that. They're only living for this world. I know I'll live forever. And as for me, I know that when I awake, the word awake is often used metaphorically to describe the resurrection. When I awake, at the resurrection of the dead, at the resurrection of the just, when I awake, I know that you won't desert me. I know, even when I die, when I awake, I will be like you. I shall be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness. This is the Old Testament equivalent of what John the apostle would say. I know some of you know the verse I'm about to quote. 1 John 3:2. Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. So David, I think here is giving an indication of, look, not only will you take care of me in this life, but also in the life which is to come. And when I awake at the resurrection of the just, I'm going to see you, I'm going to be like you. And so he's excited here. Okay, he at the beginning, he was frustrated and maybe scared. Hear my cause, hear my cause. It's a just cause. Vindicate me. I've been innocent, right? Protect me. Now rise up and fight against my enemies. And by the way, Lord, I can't wait to see you in heaven. J. Vernon McGee gives us an illustration that cinches this up and pulls it all together here. Imagine again, David's hiding in a cave. He calls out for God's protection. David knows that God is going to deliver him, and he will be in his presence one day, but he desires his presence all the time. The enemy seems strong, like a lion. The enemy seems overwhelming. They're compassing him about, surrounding him. And this is the illustration from J. Vernon McGee. He says, you and I, as God's children, look on a world that is against us. We're like the little boy playing in a vacant lot who saw a big old weed growing there and decided to pull it out of the ground. As he was pulling, a man happened by, stopped and watched him. The little fellow would pull on one side and grunt. Then he'd pull on the other side and grunt and pull. And finally, with one great supreme effort, the little fellow pulled. The roots of the weed gave way, and he fell back with a bump. And for a few moments, he sat there shocked. The man who'd been watching him said, son, that was a mighty big pull. The boy replied, it sure was, because the whole world was pulling against me. You know, you're going to have battles in this life, and I know people in our church are going through this right now. It seems like everything is against them. It seems like the enemies of God and the enemy of God's people are against them. But remember, David knew he had a strong tower to run to. David knew he had a defender who would fight for him. So, who is this defender? He is our Heavenly Father who will hear our cause and protect us. Our job is to walk uprightly. And when you do that, you can be confident that God hears and will answer. All right, any questions or comments about this passage?